Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Hercules and the Space Gods, I'm proud to bring you Nick Curto and Hal Rainbow, who will be speaking for the Urantia book. Greetings and welcome, gentlemen. How are you?
Hello. Thank you. Good to be here.
Good to have you here, and I'm looking forward, as always, to today's presentation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And as Hercules mentioned, this is the Urantia book with Nick Curto. And I've been a reader for about 35 years, and it's been an amazing journey for me. It's been really thrilling, and the knowledge I've received from this book has just been awesome. That's the only way I can describe it. And every time you pick up the book, you learn something new. Absolutely. It is a 2,000-page book, but what they've done is recorded the entire book, not only in English, but in 28 world languages, and there's a few more on the way. So you can either read the book online or you can listen to the book, which is incredible. What an amazing task that was to record it. But they have, and I've listened to the recording, and it's perfect. Um, the website where you can read the book or you can hear the book, which is, if you have a pencil handy, www.urantiabook.org. I'm going to repeat that one more time. www.urantiabook.org. It's a very well-designed website. It's got incredible visuals there and some videos I think you'll find amazing, and a huge amount of information about the book. And one thing I want to remember to tell you is that if you decide you want to join a group that's reading the book, there might be something in your neck of the woods, so to speak, because it's a worldwide organization with study groups everywhere. Not only a lot in America and Canada, but all over the world. And the way to do that is to take a look at the website and look for study groups and see if there's one in your area. They do it by state, so you can find it that way. And also, just a note that if there isn't one right where you live, the other way to find that is you can go to a Zoom study group, which means you can be anywhere in the world and join a group that's reading the book. And that is, I think, the very best way to find out what the Urantia book is about, to read it with other people. And I've done that, and it's a wonderful, absolute wonderful experience. So with that,
And
I'm going to introduce my colleague, Hal Rainbow. Hal, welcome.
welcome. And for those of you who are like me, who like an old-fashioned hard copy book in your hand to read, you can get the books on Amazon, and you can also, most bookstores, Barnes and Noble, and other major bookstores will carry the print copy.
Thank you, Hal. Good point there. And so either way, you can get a hold of this book. It is a 2,000-page book, as I mentioned to you, and it's a challenge to carry because it is a little bit heavy. But some people actually divide the book by the four sections of the book. It's in four different sections. Hal, tell them a little bit about what the different sections are.
Okay, as we said, the book is divided into four sections, and the sections of the book are the first part of the book is the central and super universes. The second section of the book, part two, is the local universe. Part three, book three, is the history of Urantia, which is my favorite part. And part four is the life and teachings of Jesus.
So there's four different sections, very different sections indeed. And when I first got the book, I'll tell you how I found it. I was attending different churches and spiritual places because I wanted to know more about world religions. And I ended up for about 2 years in the Unitarian Church, which is right near where I live in Manhattan. So I went there and I was there for about 2 years. And on a Sunday, the preacher said for the last reading, we're going to read from the Urantia book. Now, I never heard of that book before. It was a very funny name. I didn't know what it was about, but he started reading it. And I just want to tell you that I was absolutely blown over with the content of what he was reading. I've never heard anything like that ever in my life. It was amazing, and it was so in depth. And he read about two or three paragraphs of it. And then he said, everybody, it's time to go. The mass has ended, and everybody left. I had to stay in the pew where I was for about 20 minutes because it literally, I wanted to memorize, try to think about what was being said in that book that the preacher was reading because it blew me away. It really, and all the way home, I kept saying the name Urantia, Urantia. Now, Urantia means our planet Earth. So the Urantia book is the Earth book. That's what it is. And it was written for our planet and everyone in it. That alone is pretty mind-blowing. And so I found a group through an organization called the Fellowship that read the book every Tuesday night in a neighborhood in Manhattan. And I went there, it must have been I've been there for many, many years. Robin and Helene Jorgensen were the two people who hosted the reading of the Rancher book in their huge, beautiful loft. And that became a second home. They become very dear friends of us both because Hal, as you know, were there too, reading with them. And it was an extraordinary experience, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit, Hal, what do you think about the different sections of the book
That
briefly?
sounds like a good way to do it.
Okay.
As a quick reminder, the first section is the central and super universes, which is probably the hardest section of the book to get through. The book, the easiest way to describe it is like looking at a funnel. The first part is the widest, not the most information, but the most technical information. It's interestingly enough from the early 1900s, and it's like reading about quantum physics, which is mentioned in the book actually. And then the book tightens and tightens and tightens so that it's talking about the local universes, our solar system, how all of everything formed, and then it funnels down again to the history of our planet and from the beginning, from before the fall through the fall, how we put ourselves back together, various people throughout history, Noah, Moses, and then it finally hits the centerpiece, which is the life and times of Jesus.
Right. And the first part of the book also gives you the biggest possible picture of the amazing construction of the super universe. We're in just one universe of billions of universes, and it gives you a perspective that will take your breath away. They back it up with facts and estimates of distances, and it will really be something that will you'll think about for sure. Now, that's the first part of the book, the
Also,
biggest possible picture. And as Hal said, the second part is the local universe. Hal, talk about that.
the local universe is not just our universe. It's a much larger area. It's our galaxy. It's several other galaxies. The universe in the Urantia book is a much more expanded area. It's, I think, 10 or 12 stars and the planets that surround them and the universe that surrounds the solar systems that surround each of these different universes. And then is that it's all one large unit.
And again, it gives you that, again, a perspective of even with our own universe, how gigantic it is and how we're on a tiny, tiny little dot of a planet in a huge cosmos. And it talks about the relation of the different planets. And here it comes, what's on the various planets in our local universe. And that will take your breath away also.
Bec-
If you are a student of the deep relationship of a possible other beings on other planets, it will take you there also and tell you things about what's around us that will blow you away. It absolutely will.
Because some of the beings they talk about, they have the carbon-based life forms, which we are. They have several planets of carbon-based life forms. They have silicon life forms, which science talks about quite a bit. They have air breathers, again, such as us, non-air breathers, water-breathing civilizations, electric civilizations, which I'll be honest with you, I don't know that much about. And then there's also the one-brained creatures, ourselves, the two-brained creatures.
No, aren't we the two brain?
No, you're right. We're two-brained because
We're the
it's
two
left and
brain.
right hemisphere. But so that expands into a few other amount of brained creatures. The difference in the universes of how planets are populated is unbelievable. And if you're also a student of ufology, it backs up and proves a lot of what ufologists are saying.
Indeed, indeed it does. And
One interesting side note is that ufologists talk about different races being on Earth. The Urantia book talks about not so much that they've come to Earth to explore, but they're kind of visiting and hot rodding through and just sort of like spring break on Earth.
and as Hal mentioned, the diversity of life. A being can be many different things, made up of different materials, different brains, different breathing systems. He was talking about the non-breathers. We're a breather. There are non-breathers that are beings also, and they have their own civilizations, their own communities. It really will absolutely floor you. And if you're a sci-fi fan, I'm telling you, you won't put this book down. You won't. Because, and believe me, that happened to me. I opened up this book and I canceled everything I had planned for the weekend because I just couldn't turn it down. It gives you a perspective deeper than I think you've ever experienced in your life. That's what this book is doing. And again, just the next section of the book. Okay, let's go to the third section of the book.
The third section of the book, which is the history of Urantia, which, as I mentioned, starts be um oh gosh, I'm sorry, I'm losing words here.
Take your time.
The earliest man who the cave dwellers, and it follows up through modern times. It goes through what we know as scientific research on it. It goes through spiritual research on it. For instance, it talks about um, early religious leaders on Earth. They call them planetary princes. It talks about Adam and Eve, which is very different from any version of Adam and Eve you've ever heard. And then it talks about the first garden. There seems to have been two gardens of Eden. It also talks about the fall, the devil's rebellion. And this, in the Urantia book, the devil is not Satan, it's Caligastia, and Satan and Lucifer are lieutenants. And it goes past that. It goes through more races. It goes through the histories of religion, the histories of civilization, and one of the things that drew me to it, because unlike other religious texts, the Urantia book has humor. It's not all just cut and dry facts. It talks about these characters in a way that makes them more relatable. For instance, in the section about Noah, yes, Noah built the boat. Yes, Noah was the servant of the father. And yes, Noah had a drinking problem. So it's nice little tidbits that make these characters more human.
It has a lot of history of our planet that we've never, ever heard before. Some of it parallels with the Bible, but a lot of it is brand new. And you're going to be wild when you read some of the backstories that we thought we knew, but we didn't know nearly what was really going on. And one side note I want to just tell them is that one of the Urantia readers, I think about 15 years ago, the book says exactly where the Gardens of Eden were located. It's a very specific book. So this reader saved up some money and did an exposition to that area. He actually went there, and with some technical equipment and a few assistants, he located the garden. And you know what? It's exactly where the Rancher book said it was. And there were certain marks in the land area that prove that that is exactly where the garden was located. So that's just one example. Other people too have taken what's in the Rancher book and checked it out technically. They've gone to certain spots, and the Rancher books describe specific things, and they have located it. No one has ever done that before. And I have a story from a dear friend of mine who took a tour of that area, and she was telling me, Diane Lebrecq
Oh,
from
okay.
Canada, wonderful reader of the book. I've had her on my program many times, and Diane was telling me that some of the Urantia book readers and her were in spots that Jesus taught, and that there were other things that were going on in various areas, but it's not in the Bible. And the tour buses were going whizzing right past some very important places that the Urantia book readers had the book, and they were reading what was going on in those areas. And sign me up. I want to go on a tour with her because that really interests me a great deal. Okay.
Now, this section of the book, which is, I said, my favorite, also goes into spiritual history and the how religions formed from shadow worship, from shadow fear worshiping to idol worshiping to small magical fetish worshiping, and then leading on to modern worship. One of the things, interestingly enough, in the what corresponds closest to the Urantia book is Eastern religions, such as Taoism, Buddhism. They're very similar in the way in their thinking. What Nick was saying just before about going to the Garden of Eden, they don't mention Atlantis by name, but they talk about island and destruction. And there are some people who are taking the information in the Urantia book, and they're running expeditions now to follow those coordinates to see if they can find what they believe will be Atlantis.
How exciting is that? I mean, that is unbelievable. That is as cutting edge as it gets. I also want to just mention here that um, people who have discovered the Urantia book, or the Urantia book in some cases has found them, as we like to say, um, are from various religions. I've met people who are now Urantia book readers from a wide variety of spiritual callings. And also, there are people who have never in their whole lives felt that a particular religion was resonating to them. What's the term?
Atheist.
Atheists. And I've talked to several people who are now Urantia book readers who said, Nick, before I was an atheist all my life, and I came across this book. I started reading it, and now I am a Urantia book reader believer. That's an incredible thing to hear. I was very shocked and pleased that they were now finding what the Urantia book had to offer, and it was resonating. Their words were, "It resonates to me more than anything else."
One of the things I believe it's this section of the book talks about is what happens after you die, because one of the most involved parts of any religious text is what happens after you die. That's one of the first looked up areas. And the Urantia books gives a very, very detailed step, and it's not harps and angel wings and clouds. It's a furthering of education. It's picking up literally from where you died and teaching you what you need to know. The phrase, "My father's house has many mansions." The Urantia book talks about mansion worlds where you're learning. When you finish what you need to learn on one world, example, they say you will experience parenting. If you didn't do it on Earth, you'll do it on the First Mansion world. You'll experience this, you'll experience that. Relatives and loved ones will be waiting to greet you, and you'll slowly evolve into these different worlds, and you'll slowly become less of a body and more of a spiritual being. And even to the point when you reach paradise, it doesn't end there. You then go off, and I think this is really cool. You then go off as another being to what they call outer space, which is past our known universe, and then you help those civilizations grow.
That is incredible. And what Hal is pointing out uh, is very meaningful to me because when I was just discovering the Urantia book, I am in New York City and it was in the 70s, and cancer and the horrible, horrible AIDS epidemic struck big time. And a lot of younger people, my dearest friends and colleagues, were getting sick. And one by one, they passed on. And you don't expect that when there's people in the 20s and 30s and early 40s to be dying and going to funerals. And it was a very painful time for me and many, many millions of other people, of course. And the Urantia book gave me such hope and perspective about passing on from this world to the next level. And it really made a big difference. I don't know if I could have gotten through it without the knowledge that the Urantia book had. And as Hal said, it's quite detailed. I was amazed at how detailed it is. And I've read that several times, and I believe that you will also not only read it once, but many times because there's a lot in it. It's loving, it's hopeful, and it's totally inspiring. And it's one of the stronger points, I think, in the book. An amazing section. Thank you, Hal, for
Sure.
mentioning that.
Now, to quote Monty Python, now it's time for something completely different. The Urantia book is about Earth and it focuses on Earth, but there's one section where they talk about a neighboring planet. This planet, the reason they mention it, is closest to ours. Its growth is very similar to ours. Its civilizations are very similar to ours. But they talk about one country in particular, which is about the size of Australia, and it's got its own set of laws, its own set of government, but it's a much more equitable government that deals with public trust and honesty. And from the beginning of this country, historically straight on up to their present, they have a different set of rules and what they look for. Now, this section, for those of you who'd like to check out the whole thing, because we're just going to mention one part of it, it's in part three of the Urantia book, which we're going to talk about next. And it's in the section, The History of Urantia, that's the history of the planet itself. It's called Paper 72, for those of you who are not familiar with the Urantia book. Basically, each paper is a chapter dealing with its own subject, and then there are subheadings and subsections which deal with the certain detail of that section. I know that sounds a little confusing, and I'm sorry for that. But this subsection, which is section 10, is called again Government on Another Planet, and it deals with the subject of betrayal of government trust. Again, this is the way this country has handled this issue historically, from the beginning of their country straight up to now.
I think it's one of the most important sections of the book because it's saying that public trust is a very special uh, uh, area, and that people who are in public service need to own up to serving who put them there, and definitely not to betray their trust ever. And the book says that it's one of the highest crimes on that planet, highest crimes, and that's punishable by a swift death. So they're not fooling around. Now, This is me talking, but think about that. A betrayal of public trust in, say, a governmental service, something that you're part of, and how horrible it is if you betray that public trust. Can you imagine our planet and all the governments of our planet if that was their rule? Can you imagine that all the people that are elected from or put into office in various ways in our planet had that going rule that you never, never betray public trust in any way, shape, or form? It would be a different planet. Planet Earth would be a totally different planet. And that is something to think about. It's big, that's a big deal. And it really just absolutely shot out to me when I read that. I went, what? And I went back and read it a few times. And then I read the chapter again. And as Hal said, it's quite detailed. All the chapters are amazingly detailed. So that after reading it, you have answered just about all the questions you'd even have. It's written like that. It says something and then it backs it up in the next paragraph or two. So it's a constant uh, wealth of information dealing with that particular subject matter in the chapters of the different sections of the book.
And what's also I find very entertaining, it also leaves you with more questions than you started with because there are some very controversial issues in the Urantia book. Now, the Urantia book, as I said, is from the early 1900s to about the 1930s. So it deals with issues that were um, very popular, very controversial of the time. I am not going to go into the different ones that we'll leave as a teaser that you can go through the Urantia book and find them yourselves. But it's interesting, it's challenging, and in some parts you may even find it distressing. But which that's good because it will again leave you with questions. It won't leave you exactly with solutions. It leads you with ways to reach solutions, which I think is more important.
No, that's a good point, Hal. It really is. It's it's such a wealth of information. It's I've never come across anything ever like this. Absolutely. Hal, hold up the cover just so that they can see it. Put it close. Yeah. What was? Oh, the light is helping here. Let me see if I can somehow fight that light. But there is a good example of it.
Oops, we're fading away.
Whoop, there we go. That's the Urantia book. It comes in a soft as well as a hardcover version of it. And as I mentioned, online, you can read the entire book for free and you can listen to it. I know people who play that the version of the Urantia book as they're driving on a long drive somewhere and they'll listen to a chapter of the book. And again, it's in 28 world languages, and I believe there's three that they're working on right now, three more languages. So you can imagine what a task that was to put that in recorded form. And they don't have one reader doing it. There's many readers, both men and women, who will read a chapter and then the next and the next. So it's definitely something to check out. If you have a vision problem, a hard time reading for any reason, the recordings are wonderful. And there they are right in the right there for you to take and listen to. And you can play it over and over because a lot of times you won't even be able to completely comprehend everything in that chapter. A lot of people will read it much more than once to get the full impact of what it's saying.
And the other thing which is nice with the translations of the book, it does not cater to one belief, it does not cater to one system of government that is completely irrelevant to the people who are spreading the Urantia book. It is some of the languages it's translated into is Spanish, Russian, French, um,
Chinese?
right, Mandarin Chinese, Farsi. They've just published a Turkish version. I think it's also in Dutch, but I'm not positive.
It was a tremendous task to do that, and dedicated Urantia book readers, uh, got up and did it, and it took many thousands of hours to accomplish what we're telling you in different languages yet. And written also, it's also written in different languages too. I should have added that. So it's an incredible way for the whole world to get wind of the Urantia book and the wealth that's in it. Okay, let's go to the.
One last quick thing,
Oh,
because
sure.
I'm going to blow our own horn at the moment. We are members of the New York Society and
Of Greater New
the
York.
Greater New York, and one of the leading groups in translations is the New York Society of Greater New York.
Exactly right. I've been a member of that almost since the very beginning of reading the book. One other thing that's interesting is that on the society, after reading the book for a while and getting to know it, they will ask you at their for the next meeting to come if you would like to be the director of a worship service. And what that means is that you get to pick the music if you want, or the candles, or whatever you feel as though would be proper for a worship service, visuals perhaps. In some cases, people have brought beverages like wine or obviously bread or other things too. And also the languages and the music can be from your own background. So if someone is in, say, country music, they'll do some country music with a spiritual tone to it or whatever. Symphonies, other kinds of music that they put into the worship service. And lots of times they'll choose a couple of passages or more from the book and put that into the worship service. So it's quite an honor to when you're asked if you would do the next worship service.
It's even gone into dramatic versions, and there was one worship service numerous years ago where they did a worship service on humility. So they took the example from the Urantia book where Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, and one very surprised person in the society had their feet washed as an example.
That was quite something. But it's whatever you feel would be appropriate for about a 15-20 minute worship service. And it's really quite something. It's one of the high points of the meetings we have every couple of months for the New York Society of the Rancher Society of New York
Do
City.
you want to mention the programs?
What do you mean? No?
Well, the programs that are done along with the worship at the society meetings.
Go ahead.
They, along with the worship, it's an educational component or a discussion component. It's, we call it the program. It covers any topic you want from the Urantia book in any style you want in your own particular style. And it's been some lecture or slide version, and it has also been some discussion, such as the time they did a program on marriage, which led to quite a heated discussion of people's ideas. It was truly one of the better ones they did.
Indeed, it was. Indeed, it was. It's a wonderful section of the meeting we have, and a lot of the societies will have a worship service and a program after the worship service with a very specific topic and someone to do the program, to read it, or to. Sometimes it's very interactive, but it's always a high point. Well, how about the fourth section of the
Okay,
book?
well, did we hit all three?
Let's go to the.
Yes, we did. And the fourth section is the life and teachings of Jesus.
And I will say right here that that is my absolute favorite section. And I'm going to tell you what, when people ask me what is it like to read that, and a lot of these people are from a Christian background, so they are familiar with the Bible's version of Jesus's life. And with all due respect, I say one of the ways I can differentiate that is when I was growing up as a Roman Catholic and going to a Catholic service every Sunday and all that. And I would compare the Bible, with all due respect, to a very like a black and white silent movie as far as how I perceived what they were speaking of or what they were writing about. Now, the Urantia book, I would say, in my estimation, is a stereophonic sound, 3D, full color, huge IMAX screen of all the subject matters that are written about Jesus from the very beginning of his life, even before that, all the way through the crucifixion, and then the amazing a month or two after he rose and what happened then. I'll tell you, you can read it 10 times and want to read it 10 more times. It's the most inspiring, most incredible chapters you will ever come across. And when we read those particular chapters of the Jesus life and times here, a lot of people, men and women of various ages, will cry. They'll take out a handkerchief and wipe some tears because it's also so emotional on such a deep level. Uh, it will bring you to exactly what's going on, all the challenges that those people in those times had, of course, including Jesus and all the things that he had to face growing up when his father died at a fairly early age, Joseph, and Jesus became the head of the family and had to do all the tasks that a father would do. It talks about his family, about his mom, and all the interactions that they had, and it makes it so alive, so understanding of the personalities. I've never gotten that in any other book. The personalities of these people, and of course the believers, and the way that Jesus treated women as equals. That was unheard of in his time. And Jesus felt that it was only proper and right to treat women with respect, the same respect that he would treat men. It goes on and on, but I mean that's just one example. You won't put it down. The fourth part of the book is incredible.
Now, going back to before the birth of Jesus, which is part of the fourth quarter, which again, something I found pretty fascinating was the celestials who set up the universe and are in, would you say, control of the universe? It's sort of like the angelic hierarchy of the Christian religion, but different roles. It was not as how they chose where Jesus was born. It could have been anywhere in the world. They literally did an in-depth study of different parts of the world to decide where Jesus should be born, where it would be best to spread his message, which area would be best for the involvement to get the message spread. They in the book, they explain that they chose where they did because it was a major caravan stop. So therefore, the word would be spread throughout that part of that part of the world.
Another thing, Hal, that really surprised me and a lot of people when they're reading the book, as we all know, December 25th is the celebration of the birth of Jesus, but he wasn't born on December 25th. The church at the time picked that date. It actually was a big pagan holiday, and they wanted to do something to offset that. So they thought that if they put the celebration of Jesus' birthday on the 25th of December, the same day as the pagan celebration, it might bring more people to the Christianity. So that's exactly what they did. So the question is, then when was Jesus born? Well, guess what? The Urantia book has exactly the day and time. And what they're saying, and this is so interesting because it's been proven, they said that it was on August 21 at 12 noon. That was the exact day and time of Jesus' birth. Now, there's been researchers on the last 10 years who've been looking at all kinds of scripture about where the planets were, where the stars were, where the shepherds, how they, through the year, attended their flocks and what happened. And they added all that up. And the modern researchers right now are saying, we really believe it was the late summer Well, guess what? Your entry book says, yeah, it was a late summer. It was August 21 at 12 noon. So it's incredible how again how the Urantia book is being proven time and time again to be spot on. That's incredible. And so for Urantia book readers, we do celebrate December 25th because of course everybody is doing that, and that's a lot of fun. But we have another celebration, and we love parties at on the actual date of Jesus' birth, August 21, and we have celebrations then. In New York City, we go to Central Park and we have a huge picnic. Other places do other kinds of celebrations, but worldwide, a lot of Urantia book readers celebrate on the date of the Urantia books, saying that it was on the 21st of August.
Now,
So
this section of the book also brings up some major controversies. According to the Urantia book, unlike some other Christian faiths, Jesus was not born with the spirit of Christ within him. He was born a regular child, and it wasn't until later on that the Spirit of God slowly came into him, so that at Pentecost there was the full blending. And a lot of people consider this radical, but if you study American history, a lot of the leaders of the revolution also held to this idea.
again, it's another part of this book that you won't put it down because it's giving you the deep facts. It's connecting the dots. Here we go. It's connecting the dots better than anything you could ever come across. And it does it in such a way that you can understand it. It's written beautifully written. And it's each chapter is almost like a lesson. It's written in a way that you can understand it. If you have a question, by the time you read that paragraph, the question is answered, which is a very smart way to teach. And that's part of the book. Also, I got to say, Hal, that in general, the Urantia book, you can't help but feeling a tremendous sense of love and devotion for the people, for the beings who wrote this book for us on our planet Earth, Urantia. You feel the caring that it took to do it and to relate the facts to us now. And I think that the book is actually, the time has come. It was originally published in 1955. That's when it first came out. And the people who were, the few people that were responsible for printing the book sent this book to a lot of major religious hierarchy, from the Vatican on to uh, all different religions and spiritual callings were getting copies of this book so they could take a look at it. And a lot of people, I know some priests and preachers who, yes, they preach the Bible because that's what's expected, but they also read on their own the Urantia book, also
Well,
because it's part of their knowledge base.
that's actually how I first found the Urantia book. I was taking courses in Catholicism, and we, the main book, of course, was the Bible and the Apocrypha, but he did talk about the Urantia book, and he used it as a secondary source, whereas the Urantians, of course, used it as a primary source. One of the major differences, however, is among some Urantians, I shouldn't say all, but some, the Urantia book is not a holy book. It is not in line with the Bible or the Quran or other books that give a religion. This is a philosophy book. It's a guidebook of how to lead your life, how to grow your life. That's what its purpose is. That's what its goal is.
I just want to add to that, Hal, that it's not for everyone because if you don't have deep questions, if you don't want to spend the time to dig deep on important questions of life, it probably isn't for you. But on the same token, if you have deep questions and you're searching for the answers and you've been doing a lot of time trying to find the answers, this is the book for you. You've got to take a look at this, open it up. What I did when I first got it is I read the table of contents and what the chapters were about. And then I picked, I think it was about 8 or 10 chapters I had to read first because I thought I got to know what this book is saying about that particular subject that I'm very interested in. So that's how I got started with the book. And once I had those answers, and believe me, they gave me the answers that I was looking for, then I started from page 1 and I went straight through it with my study group and time well worth spent. Absolutely.
And another way that people are discovering what's in the Urantia book, and this is thanks to the age of computers and the internet, people have interests, transportation, birds, uh, anything you want, or people like Cleopatra, for example. And in your search, in the Urantia book search engine, you just write that word in and it will pull up and show you whatever papers has that subject. So this is a way that also people get interested because you put, let's say, transportation, and it talks about different styles of transportation over the eons, everything from things we're used to, some pretty amazing things that sound like they're straight out of science fiction. And um, so, when it gets you going, it's like, oh, they say this. Well, what about this? Then you have to check this out. And you could end up spending a few hours doing that.
Absolutely, Hal. And it really is quite an adventure. I want to go one step further and say that I want to give my personal email address out. If anybody has any questions that you'd like to ask either Hal or myself, we'd be happy to take your questions or comments, whatever you'd like. I'm going to give it to you now. I'll go slowly so you can write it down. My email address is NICKNYNY1, that's the numeral 1, at gmail.com. I'm going to repeat it. Nick, NYNY1 at gmail.com. We'd be very happy to hear from you.
Now, as much as we could both go on for a few hours on the subject, it looks like Nick's producer is telling us there is a time constraint and we have to start to wrap this up.
Right. Our good producer is signaling that we've done our bit for the hour. What a wonderful program it was. Hal, thank you so much
You're
for coming on
so
with me.
very welcome. It's been my pleasure.
And I want you to come back. Absolutely. I hope you're not going to charge too much.
Of course I will.
See, here you go. But anyhow, thank you so much for looking and listening to the program. This is the Urantia book with Nick Curto. Much love to you all, everywhere. And we mean everywhere. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night and thank you. And I wish you a healthy and happy Easter coming up.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Much love to you and your wife.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Joyous journeys and amazing adventures.
Excellent.